Las Vegas, right? A city of lights, entertainment, big dreams,
Yeah.
fortunes won and lost.
Absolutely.
But behind all the glitz and glamour,
Right.
there's a darker side,
Yeah.
And today we're diving into a case
Okay.
that really highlights that
Yeah.
Debbie Flores-Navarrez,
Mm-hmm.
a showgirl whose life was tragically cut short.
It's a sad story.
Really is.
Yeah.
We've got this recent article from Investor.
Okay.
It goes deep into her relationship with Jason Blue Griffith.
Oh, wow. Another performer.
Yeah, a dancer with
Okay.
a bit of a troubled past.
I see.
We're going to try to understand what happened here.
Right.
How this bright future took such a dark turn.
It's amazing how this case just shows you, like, the
Yeah.
contrast between that dazzling Las Vegas facade
Yeah.
and the real dangers underneath.
Right.
Debbie, she was living the dream,
Really?
Successful showgirl in fantasy at the Luxor.
It's hard to imagine
Uh,
anything sinister going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This article really paints a picture of her drive, her talent,
Yeah.
so loved by her colleagues,
Yeah.
seemed to have a bright future ahead of her.
Right. And then there's Jason.
Yeah, her boyfriend.
Huh? Also a performer.
Right, principal dancer in Cirque du Soleil's Love.
Wow.
They were both at the top of their game, it seemed.
Yeah, living the glamorous life.
And that's what makes this so compelling, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just the crime itself,
Right.
but this clash between ambition, love, and those darker impulses.
Yeah. Yeah.
The article describes Jason as charismatic,
Okay.
outgoing, the kind of guy who commands attention.
Hmm.
But there's this pattern of infidelity
Oh, really?
and a tendency towards volatile behavior.
So that infidelity, you think it played a part?
Oh, I think it was a major source of conflict. I wonder if it was a form of control or a deeper issue,
It's a good question. Was it calculated?
Right,
Or was it more about insecurity, lack of commitment?
right.
Either way, definitely added to the volatility in their relationship.
Yeah, and the article mentions past incidents of violence, too.
Oh, wow.
It suggests that this wasn't just a sudden thing,
Right.
but more like a culmination of escalating tension and abuse.
That's an important point.
Yeah.
Domestic violence, it rarely just happens out of the blue.
Yeah.
It often escalates over time.
Right.
Warning signs,
Yeah.
red flags that we miss or ignore.
And then, December 9th, 2010, Debbie vanishes. Gone.
Yeah.
The article talks about her active online presence.
Right.
Just going silent.
Wow.
It makes you think about how the digital world, right,
Yeah.
reflects our real lives.
Yeah.
And how a sudden absence, it's like,
It can mean something's wrong.
yeah, really wrong.
Her sister, Celeste, really takes center stage here.
Right.
She refused to let Debbie's disappearance just be forgotten.
It's tragic, but it's also inspiring. You see the strength, the resilience of those left behind.
It's amazing.
They become the driving force in seeking justice,
Absolutely.
keeping the memory alive.
And the police, to their credit, they responded.
Yeah.
They realized this wasn't just a missing person case.
Right.
And they escalated it to a homicide investigation.
I mean, given the circumstances,
Yeah.
it makes sense why they focused on Jason so quickly.
Right. He was the last one to see her.
Yeah.
And despite him trying to shift the blame,
Right.
the evidence started pointing his way.
4 days after she disappears, her car is found,
Oh, wow.
abandoned,
Yeah.
with all her belongings inside. This wasn't someone just skipping town.
Right. It suggests something much darker.
Exactly. And then comes this chilling confession
Oh.
from Jason's friend, Kai Casorso.
Okay.
This is where the case takes a really disturbing turn.
Yeah.
Kai says that Jason asked her to store a container.
A container.
Yeah, filled with cement.
Cement?
And when she asks what's inside, he says,
Oh, God.
Debbie's in there.
That's all.
This wasn't just a break in the case.
Right.
Look, it showed how calculated, how chilling Jason's actions were.
So this is where the investigation really starts to uncover the truth.
Yeah.
Piecing together what happened,
Right.
exposing the layers of deception, the brutality,
Yeah.
all hidden beneath this glamorous life.
It's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving
Absolutely.
and that darkness can be lurking anywhere.
It really can.
We'll be back to explore how the police used this confession to find the truth and what happened next.
Okay.
Stay with us as we keep unraveling this Sin City secret.
I will. As we go deeper into this case, I think it's really important to think about what this case means, beyond just the crime itself. What does Debbie's story tell us about, the world we live in? What about these hidden dangers, right, that can exist even in a glamorous place like Vegas?
It reminds us that tragedy can strike anyone, anywhere.
Right.
Behind the bright lights, the entertainment, real lives are playing out, and sometimes those lives, they collide with darkness.
Yeah, it forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about domestic violence and the manipulation that can happen.
Right.
Remember, Jason was able to convince his roommate, Luis Colombo, to help him dispose of Debbie's body.
Right.
That's a chilling level of manipulation.
It's terrifying to think about the coercion that must have been involved.
Yeah.
The article says Colombo eventually cooperated with the police, gave them crucial details about that night. I wonder what was going through his mind as he got pulled into this horrible situation.
It's a reminder that the impact of these crimes goes way beyond just the victim.
Right.
Friends, family members, even acquaintances can be pulled into this vortex of violence and deceit.
And speaking of family, Debbie's sister, Celeste, she really becomes a key figure in this story.
Oh, absolutely.
Her determination to find her sister and seek justice is so powerful.
She wouldn't let Debbie just become another statistic.
Right.
She pushed the police, organized searches, kept Debbie's memory alive in the public eye.
Right.
It's a testament to the strength of those left behind.
It really is.
After such a tragedy.
The article also points out the role of the media in this case. The intense coverage. It helped keep the pressure on law enforcement.
Right.
And it brought national attention to Debbie's disappearance.
But you know that media attention can be a double-edged sword.
Right. How so?
It can raise awareness, push for justice,
Right.
but it can also sensationalize the story
Right.
and potentially impact the legal process.
That's a good point. So let's talk about the investigation.
Okay.
Kay Casorso's confession, that was huge.
Uh-huh.
But how did the police use that information to build their case against Jason?
Well, they were able to get a search warrant for Kay's apartment,
Right.
and they found the container with Debbie's remains.
Wow.
So this physical evidence,
Yeah.
along with Colombo's testimony and other circumstantial evidence, it all built a very strong case against Jason.
So they had the confession, the physical evidence, eyewitness testimony.
Yeah.
What about Jason's defense? How did he try to explain his actions?
Well, the article says he initially denied everything.
Okay.
Claimed that Debbie had run off with another man, but as the evidence piled up, his story unraveled.
It's a classic tactic of abusers, right?
Exactly.
Deny, deflect, try to shift the blame.
Yeah, and it shows a disturbing lack of remorse.
Right, a lack of accountability.
Uh-huh.
But the evidence was overwhelming, and Jason was charged with second-degree murder.
Right.
What about the trial itself? Anything noteworthy about how it all went down?
It was a very publicized trial.
Okay.
Captured national attention.
Right.
The prosecution had a strong case. They highlighted the premeditation, the brutality,
Yeah.
and Jason's attempts to cover up what he did.
Right.
The defense, they tried to paint a picture of a crime of passion, arguing that Jason acted in a moment of rage and hadn't planned to kill Debbie.
So it was a battle of narratives.
Yeah.
The prosecution focused on the evidence.
Right.
And the defense appealed to the jury's emotions.
Exactly.
And in the end, the jury sided with the prosecution.
They did. Found Jason guilty of second-degree murder.
And that brings us to the sentencing.
Mm-hmm.
The article says, this is where it gets controversial.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the sentence and the public reaction?
Despite how awful this crime was,
Aye.
Jason only got 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
For taking a life.
It sparked outrage from a lot of people.
I can imagine.
They felt the sentence didn't fit the crime
Yeah.
or the impact it had on Debbie's loved ones.
10 years for such a brutal and calculated act.
It does seem light.
Yeah.
But sentencing guidelines vary, from state to state.
Right.
And judges consider lots of factors.
Okay.
Maybe the judge saw some remorse or believed a shorter sentence would be enough for rehabilitation.
It's hard to imagine 10 years being enough for something like this.
It's tough.
This case raises big questions about justice and accountability.
It does.
What does true justice even look like in a situation like this?
It's something people debate all the time. Some people believe justice is about punishment, retribution.
Okay.
Others think it should include rehabilitation, restoration.
Right.
But no matter what you believe, it's clear that Jason's light sentence caused a lot of anger.
Right.
And it highlighted the problems with our legal system.
Yeah, how sometimes the outcomes don't seem to make sense.
Right.
It reminds us that the pursuit of justice is ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even when there's a verdict, the wounds from a tragedy like this can last for years.
They can.
And that's what we'll talk about next.
Okay.
We'll look at the lasting impact of Debbie's death, the unanswered questions, and what we can learn from this tragic case. Stay with us as we continue to unravel this Sin City secret. This deep dive has been all about the tragic case of Debbie Flores-Navarrez, a story that starts with the glamour of Las Vegas, but ultimately reveals a much darker reality.
It really raises questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Not just about the people involved, but about, the systems that failed to protect Debbie and the things in our society that allowed domestic violence to continue.
As we wrap up, I think it's important to shift our focus
Yeah.
away from the darkness and towards what we can learn.
Okay.
How can we prevent something like this from happening again?
Absolutely. This isn't just a crime story. It's about awareness, intervention, and creating a world where domestic violence just isn't tolerated.
So let's start with the basics.
Hmm.
What are some red flags people should watch for in relationships? What are the signs that someone might be in an abusive situation?
Well, first, it's important to remember that abuse isn't always physical. It
Right.
can be emotional, psychological, financial, some common red flags, isolation from friends and family,
Okay.
extreme jealousy, possessiveness, controlling behavior, constant put-downs, belittling.
And sometimes those signs, they can be subtle, right?
Absolutely.
Disguised as love or concern.
Exactly. It's about recognizing those unhealthy patterns
Right. Patterns of behavior.
that can be dangerous.
And if you see these patterns in someone else's relationship.
You have to speak up.
Yeah.
Offer support, encourage them to get help.
It's hard though sometimes, right? To know how to intervene,
I understand that.
especially if you're worried about making things worse.
The key is to approach the situation with empathy, concern.
Right.
Listen without judgment. Let the person know you're there for them.
And you don't have to be an expert to help, right?
No, not at all.
There are resources,
Exactly.
hotlines, shelters, support groups.
All kinds of support out there.
They can provide guidance, assistance.
And it's so important to remember,
Yeah.
leaving an abusive relationship can be incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, it's a vulnerable time.
They might need help with safety planning, finding resources.
This case, it shows us how important it is to not look away.
Right.
If you suspect someone's in danger, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Reach out for help.
And it's not just about individual action.
Right.
We need to push for change in the system.
Yeah, like what?
Better laws, better enforcement,
Okay.
more awareness of domestic violence as a societal issue.
We also need to challenge those cultural norms that kind of minimize violence against women.
Right. Like the idea that jealousy is romantic or
Right.
that possessiveness is love.
Those are dangerous ideas.
They are myths that need to be busted.
We need to teach young people about healthy relationships.
Absolutely.
Respect, boundaries, consent.
Yeah.
Create a culture where victims can come forward
Right.
and get help without shame or judgment.
This case is a reminder of the consequences of domestic violence.
It really is.
But it can also push us to make things better.
Debbie's story, it should be a call to action for all of us.
It sure.
It reminds us that we all have a part to play in creating a world where violence isn't tolerated,
Right.
where victims get the support they need,
Mm-hmm.
and where everyone has the right to a life free from fear and abuse.
I hope that's what people take away from this.
That's a powerful message, and one that I hope resonates with our listeners.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It forced us to face some tough truths,
Yeah, it did.
but I think it also gave us hope.
It did.
And remember, if you or someone you know needs help, reach out. You're not alone. There are resources available, there is hope,